When you let go, you become super magnetic. Why? Because when you're holding on to these things that you think you need in order to be okay, it brings you into this low vibration and you start to repel things that are actually in alignment with your true self. And you're trying to figure out what's going on. Why does this keep happening? Why do these certain patterns and cycles keep occurring? And the reason is because you're embodying a frequency that is going against what your soul is actually longing for. And so if we back up a little bit, what's interesting is most of the time, the reason we attach to these different things is because the attachment is some kind of expression of compensation. What do I mean by that? Well, if there's some kind of core underlying belief of I am not enough, which is the case for so many people because of what they were conditioned with growing up, then what happens is the belief comes and the belief says, hey, you've got to compensate. You've got to make yourself be good enough. And if you had this, or if you had that, or if you looked like this and had this much money and lived here and whatever it is, then you'll be a little bit better, or you'll be enough, or people will like you and you'll be impressive and you'll get attention. And for someone who subconsciously believes they're not enough, that is like everything. That is golden. And the attempt to want to try to hold on to things in order to have more value or more worth is the compensation, or it's the coping strategy. However, what ends up happening, like I'm saying, is that the attachment to these things from this place of, I need these things, whatever it is, it can be a material object, it can be a relationship, it can be some kind of status, a title, whatever. But the belief of, I need these things in order to be worthy and enough and acceptable is the very thing that is causing you to operate in this low vibration, which is pushing the things that you actually want away. And then you're noticing these patterns, like I said, where that core belief is being reinforced in different situations and circumstances in your perceived outer world, and you're sitting there like fighting that, and you're trying to change the outer world and fix all these things, and it's exhausting as hell, right? It's exhausting because it takes so much effort and time and energy, and then as soon as you think you've got something figured out, or you've been able to shift something and you're feeling better temporarily, then what happens? Before long, that high wears off and you're back into that default state of chasing, searching, people-pleasing, self-abandonment, all these things that, again, are low vibrational. And that's what just keeps happening until you let go. Now, what is letting go all about? Well, I've talked about this before in other videos. I think for me, letting go is not actually something that we do. So I try to word it correctly and I try to explain it the best way possible, because there can be a lot of confusion around what does this even mean? What does it look like? How do you do it? Well, for me, letting go is not something that you do. It's a realization. It's a byproduct of something that happens prior. It's something that is the result of seeing, knowing for yourself what is true about yourself. So, for example, let's say you've been living underneath this lie of not-enoughness because of however you were conditioned growing up, because of what happened with mom and dad, or with your friends, or maybe you were a part of a religious system that taught you that you were a sinner and separated from God, or whatever. The conditioning of not-enoughness or brokenness or unworthiness can come through many different ways. But what happens is when that is formed and established, and then there's this egoic construct of who you think you are that's built on top of that, what happens is there's this tendency to really want to maintain that, okay? And what happens is you're navigating, because there's so much like striving and performance and compensation going on, you're learning how to live from this low vibrational frequency. And it just becomes natural, it becomes familiar, it becomes all that you know. But when you start to question it, when you start to actually spend time in stillness, in silence, in nature, in meditation, and you start to investigate this core belief of who you think you are subconsciously, then everything starts to shift, because the questioning, the curiosity is what starts to dissipate this illusion, this lie that you are not enough or that there's something wrong with you, is only existing because it's in the dark, it's in the shadows where questions have not been welcomed. And anytime there's questioning, like I talk about all the time, anytime there's questioning, there's going to be this expansion of consciousness. And where there is expansion of consciousness, there is light. And where there is light, the darkness dissipates. Okay? So when you start to see through this lie, this belief that you were conditioned with, then you start to directly experience the truth of your being that's been right there behind it all along, which is inherent wholeness and freedom and love, and everything you've been searching for outside of yourself is what you fundamentally are. You are divine, you are boundless, you are timeless. And this is what many spiritual, mystical traditions refer to as the true self. Okay, capital T, capital S. There's the false self, which is the ego, who you think you are. Then there's the true self, who you really are. And so when this is directly experienced, when these clouds of conditioning dissolve, you don't have to try to let go of anything at this point, because the version of you who was holding on, and the version of you that was limited and trying to become a better version of yourself, whatever, that idea of you is now fading away in the presence of truth, in the presence of the light. See? To me, that is letting go, but it's not something that you, like this separate self, are doing, because your true self is one with everything. So it's wholeness. And when that is known or experienced, letting go just is. It's just, the letting go just happens without you having to do it. So, and then you discover that your true nature is that of a high vibration. So you don't even have to raise your vibration, because raising your vibration implies that your true nature isn't already high vibrational. So again, in the same sense, like when you let go because of what you have seen or experienced to be true, when the clouds of conditioning start to dissipate and you start to live from this wholeness and this freedom, and you're authentic because you're not afraid anymore, you're not people-pleasing anymore, you're not abandoning yourself or rejecting yourself or judging yourself anymore, you're just free to be you, then the high vibrational frequency just starts to shine, and it's very magnetic, because this is the essence of your true nature. You are divine. You are the light of the world. So it's not about trying to raise your vibration like you're trying to climb some kind of spiritual ladder or something. No, it's the raising of the vibration is what happens after the natural, effortless letting go occurs. When the natural, effortless letting go occurs, there's nothing left but that high vibrational you, which is your true self. See? And this is when life gets very magical and fun. And there's this excitement. And this is a lot of times when people start to discover these like hidden aspirations and creative insights and ideas and talents and all these things just start to flow in a very natural way. And you start to take life less seriously. So there's less pressure to perform and to be a certain way and to gain people's acceptance and approval. You don't care anymore. You're not like attached to that because you don't need that because you're already free. You're free. So there's not like this energy of neediness or lack or desperation. You go from desperation to creation, or desperation to inspiration. And by the way, for me, that word inspiration or inspired is what it actually means to be in spirit, in flow, in the Tao. It's the ultimate embodiment and expression of your true self in your incarnation, through your incarnation, into the world around you. See? And it all starts with this whole thing about letting go or losing everything that was blocking who you really are. This is the amazing thing about the human experience. You see, it's not about gaining anything or adding anything to ourselves to become someone better, or like I said, to become the best version of yourself. Like, no, not at all. It's the opposite. It's about letting go of the need and the idea that there's something wrong with you to begin with. The idea that you are not enough as you are. The idea that you have to be fixed or healed or saved in order to be okay. These are all just ideas that people came up with and turned it into dogma or beliefs and came up with different ideas around that. Like, oh, you have to believe in these things about yourself. And then if you don't, there's some kind of like divine judgment or consequence, or you're going to go to hell. Like some stuff like that. It's just made up. It's just ideas that have derived from the ego. But again, that's why I always go back to curiosity. I told a friend the other day, I said, we spend a lot of time talking about these amazing things in the spiritual world, like the energy of love and compassion and peace and joy and authenticity, and all these things are amazing. But we don't spend enough time talking about these two things that, to me, are two of the most important qualities of awakening and the human experience. And these two things are, number one, like I just said, curiosity, and number two, honesty. If you start to focus on those two things and really prioritize them, you will start to notice this expansion of your true self that's embodied in your human experience, in your incarnation, like never before. You will have this insight and this intuition and just this heightened awareness like you wouldn't believe. And to me, like those two things are really what awakening is all about. And you just start to see things completely differently, starting from within yourself. It's this inside out transformation, and a transformation that starts from the inside and then starts to express itself in the world around you is what I mean. And it's amazing. So there's all these different things. There's pattern recognition, which is another thing that starts to naturally occur when you're operating from your true self, grounded in your human incarnation. I want to keep saying that because a lot of people might hear what I'm saying and think that I'm talking about, like, I don't know, some kind of crazy mystical experience or out-of-body experience, and I'm not. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is the direct experience of your true self, free from the egoic attachments, in the body, grounded in the body. If you want to experience true awakening in your human experience that your soul has chosen to experience, it happens rooted and grounded in the body. Not by trying to ascend into the different heavens and the different mystical realms and dimensions. Although, yeah, of course, there's amazing mystical experiences. I've had several myself where I have had these encounters and these different experiences. So what I'm saying is it's not all about that. A lot of people hype that up and they make that like the main thing. Oh, you got to have some kind of crazy mystical experience, or you've got to have some kind of astral projection and go into the different realms of heaven. And that's cool. That's fun. But what I'm saying is, that's not, to me, that's not what this human experience is all about. If you have that, great, and there's a lot you can learn from it. But as far as you learning what your soul has come here to learn and awaken in a way that is very unique, that happens in the body. That's why taking care of the body, of the temple, as some spiritual traditions have called it, is so important. And yeah, living from a way that's grounded and balanced, to me is really important, actually, because there's been so much that has come up in different teachings that I've been listening to or hearing, and I'm just like, I think there's a reason we're in this human experience to really experience what it's like to be human, right? Not to identify and attach who we are to the body or the human mind, but to live through it. So you awaken to your true self, which is beyond the body, beyond the mind, but then you channel that energy in your body and through your body. That, to me, is what being the light of the world is all about. See? And that's the balanced way. That's the way of the Tao. And yeah, like I said, this is something that leads to magnetism. This is something that leads to you attracting these things that you don't even like necessarily want or need anymore, because you have discovered that you are what you seek, and that everything that you could ever want is actually just an emotion, and you have all of those emotions, or you have the power to generate those emotions from within yourself. So you're not like trying to manifest things necessarily, but because you're free, because you're navigating the human experience from this high vibration, you can't help but attract these things that are in alignment with your soul. And it's great, but you're not attached to them, which makes them so much more enjoyable. Because what happens for so many people in the world of manifestation and law of attraction is they try to manifest these things, and maybe they do. Or maybe they just work really hard and they earn something that they've been wanting. When the thing occurs or when it shows up, they might enjoy it for a little bit, but then the suffering kicks in because they realize, hey, wait a second, this is impermanent. And it's going to leave me at some point. There's going to come a day and a time where this won't be in my life. And then that's when the suffering kicks in. You're like, well, it's just a matter of time. And then you can't even enjoy whatever you manifested because you're so worried and you're thinking about the future so much. And then the other thing that happens with the belief of I need to manifest or attract this into my life in order to be okay, in order to be enough, like I mentioned earlier, is the thing that you end up manifesting in the 3D world ends up being like not nearly as amazing and spectacular as you thought it was going to be, right? Because it's just the way it is. It's the imagination takes these things and makes them out to be very extravagant, and we think it's going to be the ultimate source of our happiness forever, some kind of eternal happiness. And it just doesn't happen like that. In fact, the idea that happiness is outside of ourselves, the search for happiness, the pursuit of happiness is the main thing that blocks us from the inherent happiness that is our being. So, yeah, there's that ancient story of the musk deer. The musk deer has a gland that produces a fragrance, and it smells this fragrance in the wind when it's walking around. And it's, as the story goes, it spends its life trying to find where this fragrance is coming from, searching and seeking everywhere, not realizing that the fragrance that it's searching for has been coming from itself, within itself, the whole time. And that's the case for the true nature. That's the case for everything that we've been searching for and seeking for. You are what you seek. St. Francis said, "What we are looking for is what is looking." And when you remember that, when you realize that, right here, right now, it changes everything. It's the ultimate revelation and embodiment of freedom, and your body responds, actually. So your nervous system regulates, just like I said, letting go is a byproduct of subconscious deprogramming and reprogramming. Same thing with nervous system regulation. You don't have to regulate your nervous system. Your nervous system regulates when subconsciously you're free and you know who you are and you're experiencing the essence of your being in the present moment. And you're falling in love with that, with life itself. And you see that there's no separation between life and you. You are life itself. See? And I'm telling you, this is something to be experienced. It's hard to talk about it and explain it. So I'm telling you, the direct experience of this changes everything. And there's this deep inner knowing, deep in your bones, that just knows, like, this is what the human ride, the human experience, the human game is all about. It's about remembering this. It's about returning to this original wholeness that is inherently who we are. See? It's not about becoming something better. It's not about becoming a somebody or impressing and climbing this ladder and trying to manifest so that we are. No, all of that mindset, which is attachment, is the root of suffering. It's the root of low vibrational living. And who wants to live in a low vibration? That's hell. By the way, heaven and hell are not these little places in the afterlife that people go to. Heaven and hell are states of consciousness, or they're vibrational states that are both within you. And you can experience heaven or hell right here, right now, by what's happening in your inner world. If you've been living according to some kind of limited belief about yourself, from the level of the unconscious or subconscious, that is hell. There's suffering. You're spending all this time, energy, and effort searching and seeking and striving for something that you are, something that you already have. That's hell, okay? Heaven is the recognition of your true nature that's behind the conditioning, where you're free to be yourself and you're rooted and grounded in the present moment, and there's clarity and there's non-resistance, there's this allowance, there's this peace and flow with life itself, because you're now seeing that you are life itself, and there's no separation. There's just oneness. There's just the divine manifesting, expressing itself in infinite forms. That is heaven. And it's right here, right now, because the now is all that exists. Again, living in the past or future is illusory. The past and the future don't exist. If you have a thought or a memory about the past, it's something that's occurring right now. And if you have an aspiration or a dream or a goal or a plan about the future, you can only have that right here, right now. And then when you get to that so-called event in the future, it will be the now. The now, the eternal now, is all that there is. And the dissolution of these different clouds of conditioning that keep us from seeing that is the beginning, the birth of heaven, the kingdom of heaven within you consciousness. That's what it is. That's freedom. That is the life, abundant life, whatever you want to call it, the light of life. Yeah. It's as simple as that. We make things like so complicated. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed how complicated we make spirituality and the spiritual journey and God and performance and trying to become someone, a better version of myself or somebody or what? It gets so complicated, but that's why Jesus said, until you become like a child, you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven. This is simple. This is basic. Returning to the basics of being. Returning to the stillness. Returning to silence. Nature. Playfulness. Rest. Joy. Just this is what it's about. And I think there are many souls right now who have incarnated to, of course, remember this for themselves, but also to lead the way in showing the world, showing humanity that we spent a lot of time complicating things, and we have been trying to perform and compare and judge and divide, but that is keeping us collectively in this lower vibration. But in the process of awareness, letting go, regulating, returning to the basics of being, returning to simplicity, that can shift. We can remember our true nature and start to live as high vibrational beings. And when that happens, collectively, there will be a shift, I believe. And we're entering into this age of Aquarius, which is really all about your inner transformation, your inner awakening first and foremost, which then leads to this embodiment and expression outwardly of that of unconditional love, non-judgment. That's what it is. So anyway, I think that's it for today. If you have any questions, please leave them below in the comment section. And if you found this video helpful, informative, or insightful, please leave a thumbs up at the bottom of the screen and be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.